of the epididymis. Each cone consists of a single convoluted duct from 15 to 20 centimeters in length, the diameter of which gradually decreases from the testis to the epididymis. Opposite the bases of the cones, the efferent vessels open at narrow intervals into a single duct, which constitutes, by its complex convolutions, the body and tail of the epididymis. When the convolutions of this tube are unraveled, it measures upward of 6 meters in length. It decreases in diameter and thickness as it approaches the ductus deferens. The convolutions are held together by fine areolar tissue and by bands of fibrous tissue. The tubuli recti have very thin walls. Like the channels of the rete testis, they are lined by a single layer of flattened epithelium. The ductuli efferentes and the tube of the epididymis have walls of considerable thickness on account of the presence in them of muscular tissue, which is principally arranged in a circular manner. These tubes are lined by columnar ciliated epithelium. Peculiarities. The testis, developed in the lumbar region, may be arrested or delayed in its transit to the scrotum, cryptorchism. It may be retained in the abdomen, or it may be arrested at the abdominal inguinal ring or in the inguinal canal, or it may just pass out of the subcutaneous inguinal ring without finding its way to the bottom of the scrotum. When retained in the abdomen, it gives rise to no symptoms other than the absence of the testis from the scrotum. But when it is retained in the inguinal canal, it is subjected to pressure and may become inflamed and painful. The retained testis is probably functionally useless, so that a man in whom both testes are retained, anorchism, is sterile, though he may not be impotent. The absence of one testis is termed monorchism. When a testis is retained in the inguinal canal, it is often complicated with a congenital hernia, the funicular process of the peritoneum not being obliterated. In addition to the cases above described, where there is some arrest in the descent of the testis, this organ may descend through the inguinal canal, but may miss the scrotum and assume some abnormal position. The most common form is where the testis, emerging at the subcutaneous inguinal ring, slips down between the scrotum and the thigh and comes to rest in the perineum. This is known as perineal ectopia testis. With each variety of abnormality in the position of the testis, it is very common to find concurrently a congenital hernia, or, if a hernia be not actually present, the funicular process is usually patent, and almost invariably so if the testis is in the inguinal canal. The testis, finally reaching the scrotum, may occupy an abnormal position in it. It may be inverted, so that its posterior or attached border is directed forward and the tunica vaginalis is situated behind. Fluid collections of a serous character are very frequently found in the scrotum. To these the term hydrocele is applied. The most common form is the ordinary vaginal hydrocele, in which the fluid is contained in the sac of the tunica vaginalis, which is separated, in its normal condition, from the peritoneal cavity by the whole extent of the inguinal canal. In another form, the congenital hydrocele, the fluid is in the sac of the tunica vaginalis, but this cavity communicates with the general peritoneal cavity, its tubular process remaining pervious. A third variety, known as an infantile hydrocele, occurs in those cases where the tubular process becomes obliterated only at its upper part, at or near the abdominal inguinal ring. It resembles the vaginal hydrocele, except as regards its shape, the collection of fluid extending up to the cord into the inguinal canal. Fourthly, the funicular process may become obliterated both at the abdominal inguinal ring and above the epididymis, leaving a central unobliterated portion which may become distended with fluid, giving rise to a condition known as the encysted hydrocele of the cord. End of section 34. Recording by Dr. Valerie Ross.